Hi guys, if you can hear me, just let me know in the chat down, please. We'll just wait a few minutes so everyone joins in. For whoever is here, just let your friends know that we are live now. We're gonna start at around 7:10, so 3 more minutes, just so everyone joins in. And before we start, I just want to wish you all guys a happy new year. Hopefully this year you're gonna achieve all the goals you set for yourselves, and hopefully it's a better year for all of us. So happy new year to all of you. And in the meantime, since we're waiting for everyone to join in, if you have any questions, just let me know. I can probably answer it before we start explaining everything together. So if you have something specific, let me know in the chat down below, please. Okay, 2 more minutes. 1 more minute. Okay, I will just start right now, 1 minute earlier. So let's begin. So today we're going to be looking at these following objectives. We're first going to understand plant classification, how we classify plants into different groups. We can classify them into either vascular or non-vascular, monocots versus dicots, and also flowering versus non-flowering plants. We can also have woody and non-woody. There are several different classification of plants, and we're going to be focusing on these two in this video. Then we're going to be looking about the structure of plants. So as we all know, plants are living organisms. Since they are living organisms, they contain organ systems, organs, tissues, and cells. Okay, and we're going to be looking at two organ systems, which are the shoot system and the root system. And then we're going to be looking at the different organs, such as the leaf. The leaf is an example of a plant organ. We're going to be looking at its internal structure and its external structure. Then we'll be looking at the stomata, the functions of the stomata, and how the plant as a whole has adaptations to perform photosynthesis. And at the end, we're going to be studying the transport systems, such as the xylem and the phloem, and we'll look at the stem structure by itself and the root structure by itself. And if you have any question while I'm explaining, just let me know in the chat below, so I can stop and re-explain the point. And if everything's fine, also please let me know in the chat so I can move on and we're covering everything together. Here at the end, I'm just going to create a summary for you at the end of the video. So first, let's begin by talking about the plant classification. So first of all, plants, what's special about plants is that they have a cell wall that is made of cellulose, right? And they also have chloroplasts, which help them perform photosynthesis. Now there are two major groups of plants, okay? First major group is going to be called flowering plants versus non-flowering plants. And as the name tells us, flowering plants means they produce flowers, while non-flowering plants do not produce flowers. Very simple. An example of non-flowering plant is going to be mosses and ferns, while an example of flowering plants, you can think of any flower, any plant that produces flowers, okay? And there are many. So usually flowering plants are what? Vascular. What do we mean when we say we have vascular plants and non-vascular plants? Vascular plants, as we can see here, they contain specialized tissues for transport, okay? And these specialized tissues are what? Are xylem and phloem. Now who can tell us xylem transports what and phloem transports what? Can anyone let us know in the chat? Okay, so usually xylem transports water, okay, so water and minerals, while phloem is for sugar. Okay, and now we'll be looking at more details. Exactly, Raha, you are correct. Now we'll look at non-vascular plants. So as the name also says, non-vascular plants do not contain vascular tissue, so they do not have these specialized tissues such as the xylem and the phloem. Okay, now another classification is we can split flowering plants into two categories, monocots and dicots. Now from the name also, mono means one. So monocot has a single cotyledon and seeds, okay, and this seed is what is an embryonic seed that stores usually food, okay, so it stores food. While dicots, from the name, di means two, they have two of these seeds, which also they have the same function, stores food. They are embryonic seeds that store food. These are the ways that we classify plants. Moving on, we mentioned already vascular versus non-vascular. We said vascular plants have xylem and phloem, and they are for transport, and they are usually taller and more complex. While non-vascular plants, they are smaller in size, they lack specialized transport tissue, they absorb water directly. They do not have the specialized transport system like vascular plants. Okay, now let's look at two organ systems in the plant. We have the shoot system and the root system, as we can explain it from the image below. Root system is anything under, okay? Shoot system is everything you see. So everything above ground is going to be the shoot system. Now, of course, it's an organ system, so it's made up of organs. These organs are made of tissues, these tissues are made of cells, etc. Now, we'll first look at the root system. We have the main taproot, which you see is the one that goes straight down below, and then we have some lateral roots that extend from the main taproot, and at the end we have root hairs that are also smaller extensions, and we'll look at their function later on in the video. Now regarding the shoot system, okay, so also guys, you have to memorize the labeling, okay, so all the labeling we see here, you guys must know it, okay, because they're gonna ask you about it. Now if we look at the shoot system, we have the stem, okay, the stem provides of course structure, rigidity for the plant. We also have nodes. What are nodes? Nodes are where leaves or buds stem from. So as you see, so this is a node, 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 okay? So all of these are nodes, and the distance between two nodes is going to be called what? internode. Okay? And we can also have a terminal bud. That's where the plant mainly grows from. Okay, so it extends its length from this terminal bud, and it also has lateral buds for lateral extensions. And as we saw in the roots, we have lateral roots that extend sideways. Okay, so the shoot system has stems, leaves, buds, and flowers if it's a flowering plant, and they support photosynthesis. And the root system usually anchors the plant in the soil. Okay, so it gives it structure, rigidity, and it helps absorbs water and minerals and also stores nutrients. Now let's look at leaves. So we looked at the two organ systems. Now we're going to be looking at the organs that form these organ systems. An important and extremely important structure or organ is the leaf. Now the leaf structure, let me show you the image first of all. Okay, this is an unlabeled image. We're going to label it right now together. So leaves have what? They have an upper epidermis. So epidermis is what? Epidermis is the outermost layer. Okay, so as you can see, we have the upper epidermis and we have a lower epidermis. Okay, and now these leaves, you see this is what we call it a waxy cuticle. Okay, and what is the function of this waxy cuticle? Is to prevent water loss. Okay, so the plant doesn't want to be dehydrated, it needs water. Why does it need water? It needs water to perform photosynthesis. If you guys remember, the formula for photosynthesis was, I'll write it down for you. We need carbon dioxide plus 6H2O, which gives us C6H12 and water, and oxygen. So we produce the glucose and oxygen as a byproduct, while carbon dioxide and water are the reactants needed. So we need water, so we don't want water to be lost. That's why we have a waxy cuticle. Now moving on. Under the epidermis, we have B and E form what we call the mesophyll layer. Okay? And this mesophyll layer is split into two parts. We have the palisade, okay? Yes, preventing water loss and preventing evaporation is the same. Okay, so we don't want water to evaporate, so we're technically preventing water loss. Okay, while E is what, as you guys can see, there are big spaces, so we're gonna call it the spongy layer. Okay, and now we're going to be looking at the function of each of them. So since they have different structures, they're going to probably have different functions. So in the palisade, its main function is for photosynthesis. Why is it the main function for the main role of them is to perform photosynthesis? The reason is because it contains several chloroplasts. Okay, so most chloroplasts are found here. Okay, they're found in the palisade mesophyll layer. Okay, while spongy layer, since we have a lot of empty spaces, is going to be good for gas exchange. So didn't we say we need gas exchange for photosynthesis? So this is where gas exchange occurs. Now, in the lower epidermis, as you guys can see, we have a pore. Now what is this pore? This pore is stomata. Again, we need a way for carbon dioxide to enter and for oxygen to leave. How is carbon dioxide going to enter and how will oxygen leave? There must be a pore, an opening that allows the gases to diffuse in and to diffuse out. And this opening is by the stomata, and the stomata is always surrounded by two guard cells. Okay, these guard cells have a thick cell wall just for protection of the stomata. Now, also one thing which is important, in the upper epidermis, we don't have that many stomata. Can anyone think of a reason why we don't have that many stomata in the upper epidermis? Try to think about it for a few seconds. If you're not sure, I'll let you know right now. But give it a shot. Okay, close. Not exactly because there's a waxy cuticle, but because the stomata is an opening. So since it's an opening, okay, gases can come in, gases can come out. But we can also have water loss. So I don't want, and the upper epidermis, exactly, to prevent it from drying. That's correct. Because the upper epidermis is exposed to the environment, to the sun, there is heat. So the stomata, if we have stomata, we could lose water, which is going to cause dehydration of our plant. Okay, that's why stomata are usually found in the lower epidermis and not in the upper epidermis. So let's just go again over the structure of the leaf. We said we have the epidermis. The function of the epidermis, it protects the leaf, also secretes a waxy cuticle to minimize water loss. Then we have the mesophyll layer, which is under it directly, and we said is split into two parts, which is the palisade layer and the spongy layer. We said the palisade is the primary site of photosynthesis. Why? Because it contains the most number of chloroplasts, while the spongy layer is loosely packed with the air spaces for gas exchange. And we're going to speak now about the vascular bundles, which are the xylem and the phloem. Okay, and as we mentioned before, xylem is to transport water and mineral salts, while phloem is to transport carbohydrates. Now xylem are usually found to the inner part, while phloem are to the outer part. So C is xylem, D is phloem. Okay, while the stomata, we said there are microscopic pores in the epidermis. They are controlled by guard cells, and they allow gas exchange, of course, carbon dioxide intake, because they need carbon dioxide to perform photosynthesis, and they release oxygen. They also regulate water loss through transpiration as they close during excessive heat. These are the structures, internal structures of leaves. Now, we mentioned that plants perform photosynthesis. Okay? Now, since they perform photosynthesis, and photosynthesis is vital for their survival. If we put a plant in the dark, it will eventually die. Why is that? Because it cannot produce its own food, because for photosynthesis, it needs sunlight. It's the same thing if I don't give the plant water, it will eventually die because it cannot perform photosynthesis. So what we can see from this is photosynthesis is a vital process for the survival of plants. Okay? So we have something, or plants have adapted. And what's an adaptation? As you guys can see in the definition here, an adaptation is usually a function or a structure or even a behavior of a living organism that helps it carry out vital processes. Okay, so photosynthesis is a vital process. So plants have evolved in a way, they have adapted to maximize efficiency to perform photosynthesis. And these adaptations have come in two forms. We have external features and internal features. Now, if you look at the external features, usually plants have broad, flat leaves. Why? To maximize their surface area for sunlight absorption. Also, the leaves have a thin structure. Why? To ensure short diffusion path for gases. If they were thick, so I'll always give this example. Let's say we had a thick layer while a thin layer. For a gas to diffuse this way and this way, of course, say this is path 1, this is path 2. It will diffuse through path 1 in a faster way, while for it to diffuse through path 2, it will take more time. So it will be slower because it is thicker. So that's why they have thin structures, to ensure the short diffusion path. And they also have stomata, which enable efficient gas exchange with external air. Now to move on to the internal structures, they have large spaces in the spongy mesophyll layer. As we said, these large spaces is to have efficient gas exchange, and they also have a numerous number of chloroplasts in the upper palisade mesophyll. Remember, the upper came, let me show you again, the upper comes directly under the epidermis, so it is also exposed to sunlight, a good amount of sunlight. Okay, yes, we're going to go on to the last point right now, the branching network of veins. Now remember, the branching network of veins is the vascular tissue, the vascular bundles, so xylem and phloem. So plants, for them to survive, they need sugar. Okay, so we said they perform photosynthesis, that's correct, but they also perform cellular respiration to get energy. And what is the formula of cellular respiration? Let me remind you of it. Cellular respiration is basically the reverse of photosynthesis, so it's going to be C6H12O6 plus 6O2 releases 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus energy. Okay, so they need carbohydrates. Now, if you don't have a branching network of phloem, xylem, they're not gonna, or even they're not gonna be able to perform cellular respiration. Okay, so that's why this branching network is important. So they get energy, and they use that energy also to perform other processes such as photosynthesis. Okay, is that clear? Okay, perfect. Now let's look also into more detail about the vascular bundles in plants. So we said already, xylem transports water and minerals upward from roots to leaves. This is important to note. So let's say this was xylem, okay? The direction is going to be upward because we saw the root system and the shoot system. So we said this is the root system, and we said above ground is the shoot system. Now, water absorption happens where there's water in the soil, so water absorption happens by the roots. So water is going to move upward from the roots to the leaves, to the shoot system above. Okay, so the movement of water is always upward from the roots to the leaves. However, in the phloem, we carry sugar. What type of sugar? It's sucrose usually, okay? So they carry sucrose and nutrients from the leaves to other parts. So phloem goes in many directions. It goes to other leaves, but also goes down to the roots. The roots also need sucrose to perform cellular respiration. They need sugar. So the phloem goes in many directions, while the xylem only goes upward, okay? And not only is their function for transport, it's also to provide structural support. This is important to note, guys, okay? So we said the function of vascular bundles is for transport, but also it plays a role in providing structural support. Now, if we're going to look at the xylem, what are xylem made up of? They are narrow, hollow, elongated. It's important to note they are dead cells, okay? So xylem are dead cells. They are not living, and they are specialized to transport water and mineral salts, okay, that are taken up usually from the soil. While phloem are living cells, they are made up of sieve tube elements, and they transport sucrose from the leaf to all the other parts of the plant, okay? Now let's move on to the root structure. If all of you are fine with the material we just explained. If you have any questions, let me know before we move on. Okay, I'm assuming there's no questions, so let's continue. Now we're going to be looking at the root structure. Now, the epidermis of the root structure, remember epidermis is the outermost layer. Now here, unlike we looked at the leaves, the epidermis here lacks a waxy cuticle. Can someone in the chat think of why in the roots their epidermis does not have a waxy cuticle? Give it a shot. It's fine if you get it wrong. Just try to think about it. Why do you think? I'll give you a hint. Think of the function of the roots and think of the function of the waxy cuticle. Do they support each other or do they contradict each other? Exactly. So the waxy cuticle, as we mentioned before, it's there to prevent water loss, while the function of the roots is what? Is to absorb water. So if I have a waxy cuticle, I'm preventing water loss, so water is not going to leave or enter. The same, but the function of the roots is to absorb water, so I want water to enter. Okay, so that's why they lack a cuticle, and they are specialized for water absorption. Why are they specialized for water absorption? Because the epidermis has extensions we call root hairs. Okay, so these root hairs, what is their function? Their function is to increase the surface area for absorption of water and mineral salts. Okay, now remember guys, we spoke about it before. How is water absorbed? Through what process? It's through osmosis, while mineral salts, how's it? By active transport. And here's a question for you guys. Does active transport need energy or it does not need energy? That's incorrect, but thank you for trying, Al Fattal. Active transport needs energy, so it needs ATP. So let's think about it. We need ATP, so we need aerobic respiration. So how is that going to happen? Through the cortex. So the cortex usually stores starch grains and it also facilitates oxygen diffusion. For what reason? Of course, to allow aerobic respiration because we need energy to absorb the mineral salts. And of course, we also have the central vascular cylinder, which both strengthens the roots and is also for the absorption as it contains xylem and phloem. And we finally have the root cap, which protects the root tip during soil penetration. Okay, and this is the image. You guys have to know that the xylem is usually to the center part. You can see it forms like a star in the middle. Okay, while the phloem surrounds it. Okay, and this is in the roots. Okay, because now we'll be looking at the structure of it in the stem. It's going to be a bit different. So think about it. The star is the xylem and it's in the roots, while the phloem surrounds the xylem. Now to look at the stem structure, which is also another organ, part of the shoot system. Again, we have the epidermis, which is the outer protective layer, which may have a waxy cuticle or may not have a waxy cuticle, and it also has stomata, but remember we said not as numerous as in the lower epidermis. And remember in the beginning I mentioned to you guys that we can also classify plants into woody and non-woody. So in woody stems, this epidermis does not exist, is usually replaced by bark, and bark is just layers of dead cells stacked on top of each other, okay, which provide, of course, rigidity and toughness. Moving on, after the epidermis, we have the cortex, the pith, and the vascular bundles, as we can see here in the image. So you can see the epidermis is the outermost layer. Okay, and then we have the cortex. And what's the function of the cortex? Again, the cortex stores starch grains and supports photosynthesis in green stems. Okay, it's important to note in green stems. While we have the pith, which is innermost layer, it's the central core. It provides structural support. Okay, and we have the vascular bundles, as you guys can see. And again, the xylem is usually towards the inside. Okay, so xylem is usually towards the inside, and you see the vascular bundles are arranged in a ring structure. Okay, they're arranged in a ring structure. Yep, I'm assuming it can also store water, starch, but again, not a huge amount. Okay, mainly starch grains and support photosynthesis in green stems. Okay, so here are some questions we're going to do with each other. But before I show the answers of the questions, let's try to do them together, interacting with each other. So the first question, can anyone differentiate between both vascular and non-vascular plants? Okay, so remember we said vascular plants have vascular bundles, while non-vascular plants do not contain vascular bundles. Okay, that's for the first question. The next question is going to be explaining the roles of the xylem and the phloem. Remember we said xylem is for transport of water, and we said how is water transported? It is by osmosis, while the phloem transports carbohydrates, mainly sucrose. In what way, in what method? Also active transport. Okay, and we said the xylem also transports water and minerals exactly, and these minerals are transported in what method? We said active transport. Okay, so number 3, what are the functions of the root cap and root hairs? Okay, we spoke about the functions of both. This is just quite a revision for you guys. Exactly, root hairs increase the surface area, so more absorption of water and mineral salts. While what was the function of the root cap? Think about the name. It's a root cap, so it's a cap. So what's it doing? So since it's a cap, it's basically just protecting the root tip. Okay? Now let's go to the fourth question, which is describe the adaptations of leaves for photosynthesis. Yes, Shahid, you're correct. It protects the root tip, exactly. So number 4, we spoke about 2 different adaptations. We spoke about internal and external. So remember, if we're thinking about the external, you're going to think about flat leaves. You're going to think about stomata. You're going to think about the stem protecting the leaves. Okay, anything that's going to increase the surface area for sunlight absorption and protection of the plant to perform photosynthesis. While the internal features are, we said, large spaces in the spongy layer, so more gas exchange, a greater number of chloroplasts in the palisade mesophyll layer, so more photosynthesis, okay, and also a branched network of veins, okay. And finally, how do stomata regulate water loss and gas exchange? Remember, we said those are the two functions they play in. They play in gas exchange and they play a role in regulating water loss. And remember, we also said that the stomata are guarded by two guard cells, okay. And these are the answers. The answer for number 5 is not showing, but we mentioned it already, okay. So if you want, take a screenshot of the answers and take a screenshot of the questions too if you want. Exactly, they open and they close depending on the environment. So if they are in a dry environment, they're obviously going to close because they do not want to lose water, okay. However, for example, maybe at night they open up to allow gas to enter, and since there is no sun, the temperature is not going to be as high, so there's not going to be as much water loss, okay. So this is one of the ways that stomata regulate water loss and gas exchange depending on the environment they are in and the conditions that they are in. Okay, so we're basically done with the material. If you have any questions, let me know. If you guys want me to quickly review everything we did right now, I don't mind doing that. However, if you're all fine and good with the material, perfect. If you have any questions, this is the time to ask me right now. And if not, best of luck on your exam. So let me know in the chat what you guys want to do. Okay, perfect. If no one has any questions, we're going to be closing right now. If you have any questions, we have the community group. If you're not in it, let me know in the chat so I can put the link for the group to join in, where you can ask questions, and hopefully I'll be able to help all of you. And that's it for today, since there's no more questions. Thank you all for joining. I hope it was helpful and beneficial and you understood everything. If there's anything you still do not understand, let me know. I will do my best to explain it. Thank you all again. Best of luck in your exam tomorrow, and Happy New Year. See you guys.